you feel like you're living in a man's world? I know I do sometimes. Thank you for viewing us today on Unleashed Goddesses Among Us, podcast episode number 5. I am your co-host, Lynne Maldonado.
And I'm your co-host, Kimberly Anderson. And in purpose, we find power. So here we are today.
Yeah, we're going to break it down for you. Yes, we are.
So one of the goddesses in the Unleashed series, The Goddesses Among Us, talked about being in a man's world and literally feeling like she was swimming uphill all the time, trying to make those connections and get in touch with people that could help her in a man's world. And nobody wanted to help her ever. And she finally came across this woman that she was like, oh, hallelujah, finally another female in the building that can help me. And this woman was like, you're on your own. Every man and woman for themselves.
Wow. And in this particular episode, the individual that we're talking about, this happened in, let's say, the 50s, late 50s, 60s, in that time frame. So one might say, yeah, that might be normal. But ladies, that is still going on. It is still going on today. When I was doing my corporate thing, starting in the 80s, that was still the mindset. The mindset is, if I can get to the top, however you got there, may it be who you were educated, you had the experience, and in some cases, it wasn't that you had any of those things. It may have been by favors, whatever. But a lot of females at that time, and still to this day, feel like threatened.
Yep.
If you want to ask for the simplest thing, they're threatened because you might find out that they don't know. You might find out how they really got there, or you might actually be better than them.
I think that's a huge point too, that you're making right there, is that there are women out there that feel like you'll take their job. And so they're not willing to give you that helping hand. And we got to stop that. Like, let's bring the rising tide lifts all ships. Like, let's help each other out.
Absolutely. I totally agree. When I worked in corporate and I was in an executive and upper management, my thing was to cross train. I don't care if you were female, male, whatever, him, she, her, they, I don't care. It was cross training, and it was, you needed to know what I knew, because that was the only way of an advancement. That's what I thought. And there was never a fear there. I wanted you to be better than me. I wanted you to learn my job, because then that meant I was doing my job, right? That I was strong enough to be able to coach and train a team that would then be able to walk into my place if I was sick, had to go on vacation, or if I got promoted or left the company, because then that makes you look better. And it really baffles me that we're still in that state of fear today, that, we don't believe in doing that and just uplifting and the sisterhood.
I think that goes to true leadership when you cross train and you help. And really, that's ultimately, no matter what you work for, even if you're working for yourself,
Yeah.
that is really what's going to elevate your company and your success, is by creating those leadership within that community of people. And I think her story really, and even though it was a long time ago, I just feel like it really still stands so true today, and gives people it paints a really good picture of how we need to change that perception and that mindset, whether it's all women or you are still living in a man's world, depending on where you're at and what you do in your life. It's about helping each other, and that is ultimately what's going to build that bottom line for the company, yours as an entrepreneur, or the company that you work for.
No, you're absolutely right. Now, I will play devil's advocate, because there's always two and three sides to every story, right? You know, and there are times when you are actually genuinely wanting to help and support an individual. Even in your own business, as you said, you want to train someone, take someone under your wing, give them that knowledge, that experience, and that individual betrays you. Now
Mm-hmm.
that happens, you
It
know,
does.
and when that happens, you can almost understand why there's still individuals stuck in that mindset that I've got to keep it all here close to the chest, and what I know, only I can know and not want to share, because that's an awful feeling to have that happen. Is that you're trying to grow and you're trying to expand and you're trying to share whatever knowledge or technique or whatever it is that you have with an individual, and they decide that they want to do something that's not aligned with the goal, that you thought you were setting together. So that does happen. And my look on that is, though, universe has a plan for all of us. We might think that we're doing something and we're going in one direction. We may think that we burned that person or we got over, or we may even think that we're protecting ourselves, but there's always something bigger out there. So I look at it this way: if you had to do that to somebody, if you have to be that way and not be honest and not be genuine to just get over on someone, then you really must have needed it. And good luck with that. You know, good luck with that. And as long as we initially start something out with good intentions, pure intentions, and to do the right thing, then you've done your job. You've done what it is you're supposed to do. Someone else decides to take it and do something underhanded or different with it without being honest, without being truthful, then they're going to have to deal with that. And I just wash my hands of it, and I've seen it all. I've been doing this a long time, so I've seen it all, you know. But that happens in a lot of cases, Someone else has a whole different agenda,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah,
know.
that's so true. And it does leave a scar. It does hurt. And hopefully people can take those ones that are injured in that situation, that are hurt from it. And I've seen some big monies get lost because of partnerships have broken and, you know, took him to the bank and I
Yeah,
guess to the cleaners actually.
right.
And the other way. And it scars people. It really it you put up a lot of guards and barriers and you want to, be gentle in how you're moving forward, but always remember that it's kind of like a relationship. All the
Yes.
baggage that came from one relationship doesn't mean you're going to have that in the next relationship. So don't discount partnerships and working within a community of people to get your business or the company's business up. It's still about helping each other out. And like you said, with good intentions, and
Yeah.
if your heart's right, it does work out. It may set you back a bit, but it'll definitely launch you forward because it's a learning lesson. We're
Yeah,
always going through that, right? It's the
that's
life of
true.
learning.
That is true. And it is, you're definitely right. It is a relationship, 100%. Even when you go to a 9 to 5, that's a working relationship. It's that's all we do is build relationships with everything, our customers, our clients, and it's very important to do it authentically and to have things in place that also that can protect you, if it's contracts, if it's sometimes we like to walk into things because we get it so excited and we don't think that maybe everybody doesn't have your best interests, there. Maybe the goal isn't the same goal that we talked about. Maybe they heard it differently, and so there's all those things to think about. And it's really sad, though, that you
Mhm.
have to do that, but you kind of have to. You kind of have to protect yourself, because then you get situations like this lady had, where she asked for something so
Yeah.
simple, a question, advice that any one of us women should just be willing to just go out and pass out like candy, because that makes us stronger. That makes us stand together. That makes us a community. And to be told, no, sorry, you're on your own, boo boo. Really? And that's sad, because what does that tell you as an individual? You're insecure, you know, and maybe you're not being honest about who you are or what you can do, or even what the whole project's about in the first place. What are we really doing here? Are we being honest? If you can't honestly tell me how the process is supposed to roll out, that is, that makes you have to take a step back and go, huh, are we all really doing what we're supposed to be doing every
Yeah.
day when we wake up?
Right. I think too, if you find yourself in those situations, which happens all the time, even in job interviews,
Hmm.
you know, you're having an interview where you know more than the person interviewing you,
Yes.
and they are not going to push you forward or get you into the second step of interviews because they're like, oh crap, they'll take my job. And so you
Right.
lose out on an opportunity because of that person. Find those resources. There are so many different things out there that can get you plugged in and help you be successful in anything that you want to do. There's just a wealth of information out there.
Yeah.
And so if people find themselves in that position of not getting the help within the community, the business, or the company that you're in, or even in your own business, there are resources out there to tap into to really help you become successful. So I just want people not to think that it's the end of the world or
Yeah.
they got to switch gears completely, because every time a door opens, another one closes, one opens up. And so don't just get hung up on, well, they're not going to help me, or I'm not going to get that second interview, or whatever that might be.
Yeah.
Move forward, research, there's resources.
And ask questions. It's always good to follow up in an interview situation, whether it's, via, Zoom online, or if it's in person, send that email to the appropriate people, the hiring manager and the recruiter, and say, thank them for their time. And if they to say to you, you haven't been chosen, we've decided to go with someone else, ask what you could have done differently. Ask what
Mhm.
it was that made them make that decision to pass you up or choose someone else. A lot of times you'll get the answers, and then sometimes if you don't, there's more eyes on that than one. Now you've put people on notice that,
Mhm.
especially if you're in a situation where the person wasn't qualified to even interview you. So now they're on notice that
Yeah.
you're like you're holding them down. Okay, what exactly was it that made you make this choice? And to put a person in a situation of having to answer that, oh my goodness, I've had things turn around and change by just doing that follow up. And because you're holding them to it. And if they can't even articulate why it is they went to someone else, then you shouldn't even have been in the driver's seat.
Right.
Taking the control and the responsibility of our future, because we control our destiny.
Yep.
A lot of us don't think that, but we really do. We can make those
Yeah.
decisions, we can make those choices, and we can also hold people accountable for
Yeah.
how they treat us and what they do and what they don't do. We're not always going to get our way, but at least understand why. So then what you need to do different for next time to continue growing.
Yeah. Yeah. Be your own advocate.
Absolutely.
That's really important, just like you said, take the responsibility because it does lie on your own shoulders. The greats before us talk about having focus, determination,
Resilience.
habits,
Yes, all
and
of that.
being your own advocate. Like it really lies in your own lap. You can't sit on the couch and think things are going to come to you. You have to be proactive and do things. And like for this one goddess that was in the book that dealt with this and dealt with this a lot, especially back in those decades, she really just kept fighting and she became her own advocate and really pushed forward for what she believed in, what she thought was right for her, and just really pushed forward and didn't worry about where she wasn't getting the help. she sought out where she could. And it
Right.
wound up being a man that did help her because
Uh-huh.
he wanted to see her succeed. So that's huge.
It
It
is.
doesn't have to be another sister goddess that doesn't want to help you. It can be anybody willing to help you to get you to succeed. Take that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And she took that, where it was hurt and pain and rejection and turned it around to now being in a position where she's helped so many other women, by telling her truth and using her story and helping open up other avenues for women so that they would have the support, from a sisterhood and of both men and women that are in, these different organizations to help catapult your dreams, your ideas, your desires to real life businesses and triumphs. So, you can't give up. You can't give up. One door closes, you just keep open and keep knocking, knocking those
Yeah.
doors until they open up for you, you know.
Yeah.
But
There's
yeah,
two things that she said. There's two things that she said that I think about often. And one of them is this gentleman that became a mentor of hers that she worked for many years. He helped her understand the power of believing in what could be done and not in limitations. And she talked about this story of being in an elevator ride with him. And he was talking to a builder and they said that, well, it can't be done. He goes, I'm not asking you for how to tell me it can't be done. I want you to show me how it can. So it removed these limitations, these limiting beliefs from her that anything can be done if you put your mind to it. If it takes time, a lot of it takes money, but there are ways to make things happen. And so that was something that I thought was very poignant that she had mentioned. And also, when she tells the story of that lady, when she had asked for help and that woman refused, she said, I will never be that person. I will always show up ready and willing and able to help anybody,
right.
female or male, that asks me for help. And that is what her mission in life has been. And it's been a remarkable story, a remarkable lifetime that she has just, like you were saying, helping many, many women and men
Yeah.
across the board, across continents. So it's
Yes.
been an awesome thing to witness, to see her get out there and do.
Yes. Overcome. And audience, oh boy, we would love for you to drop some comments down there and share a time when you felt all odds were against you and no one was there to help you. It can be a business, it can be your own business, it can be, working for someone else. It may just be in your personal relationship. All of that, it all works in the same, way, and so yeah, we would really love for you to, share this video with anyone if you think they need to hear some inspiration because they're struggling. Like and subscribe, but more importantly, reach out to us because maybe your story can be shared one of these days on our episodes.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for being a part of Unleashed. And again, in purpose, we find power. And here we are to talk about stories and your stories. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, thank you and be well.